Test one, test. Can you hear me?
Test, test.
And Hoot we could hear really well.
Test.
There. That's better, Ben.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay.
Testing. Hey, you can hear me today.
Yeah, we can hear. We will come to order. And guests rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get to public comment, I'd like to change the agenda. If there's no objection, I would like to move item 1 under Michael Brown's report, resolution to authorize issuance of sewage disposal bonds before the interviews for the Planning Commission. Hearing none, and without objection, the agenda is met. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Step up to the microphone.
Yeah, why don't you grab that microphone so we all can hear you?
Yeah. Aaron Gross, City of Hastings. I find it interesting that in 4 months of pleading with this board, that very little has been accomplished. I mistakenly thought that county government listened to the people that they represent. It seems to me that they are all interested in passing every item on the agenda, but who sets the agenda? I'm not sure at this point. One thing is clear, I hardly ever hear a no vote. I hardly hear anything other than the ayes have it. Even when I plead with the board to suspend the rules according to Robert's Rules of Order to discuss real harm that is being done to the people of this county, I'm met with blank stares. And even the chairman of this board will suspend the rules in his party meeting to benefit his party. What have I been asking for? To stand up to a tyrannical regime. The Supreme Court has already said that the governor is not able to give herself power and keep it going. It is clear that her policies are not working. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. There is a spike in COVID cases, I know that. And we still think that the lockdowns are working. This is insane. And what have I instructed my representatives to do? Take a stand. I've organized rallies. I have prepared reports to read. Oh, and by the way, what is the point of having a correspondence section if no one's going to read my correspondence or they'll barely paraphrase it? I've heard other people's read here, but never mine. Why do I send them? And I have sent in well-prepared documents, documents that I've asked the federal government questions about meeting times, about who works when. Was it read? No. I have heard other people's letters read. Is it because I'm nothing more than an agitator to you? I am not. I just care about my fellow citizens. But even then, it became more about who works for the county, not who the county represents. I also know that the very law that the MDHS is using to limit our activities is unjust and unconstitutional and goes against its own statute. In MCL 333.2253, it states that the director can limit meetings or gatherings. However, in MCL 333.1111, paragraph 1, it states, this code is intended to be consistent with applicable federal and state law and shall be construed when necessary to achieve that consistency. Since the, since the people have the right, according to the state and federal constitutions, which are law, peaceably to assemble, why is this board so afraid to remember the oath that you swore and do the right thing? Have courage and stand up to the tyrants in our government. Here is your oath. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office of the county clerk according to the best of my abilities. That was Pam Palmer's. Thank you, Pam. I took an oath similar to that in 1995 when I stood in the yellow footprints in San Diego as a Marine and took that oath. Frankly, I'm disappointed in what this county has not done.
There further public comment?
Bob Vanderbilt, Hastings Township. I went to the theater last night and saw a performance of what I think the title was Trainwreck.
Thank you for your comment. Further public comment? We'll move ahead. At this time, the entertain a motion to recommend adoption of resolution to authorize issuance of sewage disposal bonds. That motion is made by Connor, supported by Gibson. Discussion. Good morning, guys.
Morning. Morning. Mark Nettleton with Micah Myers.
Bobby Benzinski, Benzinski and Company.
Before the committee this morning is a resolution to authorize the issuance of bonds for the Village of Middleville Sewer Improvement Project, the wastewater treatment plant improvement project. The village received bids about 2 weeks ago or so. The bids were favorable. The as-bid cost, including engineering contingencies and cost of issuance for the bonds, is $4,815,000. The village has $2.5 million on hand for the project, so the amount of the bonds that would be issued by the county on behalf of the village would be $2,315,000. They'd be issued pursuant to the bond contract between the village and the county that was entered into earlier this year and approved late last year. And so for the committee's consideration is to recommend for the full commission the bond authorizing resolution. These bonds would be outstanding for 21 years through 2041, and we anticipate that the bonds would be sold May 19th through a competitive sale.
Are there questions from commissioners? Commissioner Connor. Do you want to speak into that microphone?
So the Board of Public Works met this morning, and we had a unanimous vote to move this on to the Board of Commissioners. So there was hardly any discussion, a little bit, but it was a unanimous vote to move it on.
Okay. And for our new commissioners, by using the county's bonding authority, it saves the village money.
That's correct.
So we have a very strong bond rating, and we make it available to projects that are beneficial to the public. Catherine, do you have anything to add, since this is in your district?
No, just that we appreciate the support of the county to make this a more affordable project.
Great. Is there any other questions or comments?
Just one. Mark, how many bidders were on this project?
Let's see, offhand, I know that there were at least 2. There may have been more. I apologize, Commissioner, I don't know offhand. Let me see. Looking for the bid recommendation letter. There were 4 bidders.
4 people submitted bids for this project?
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may, one last comment. So these bonds are backed by the village's limited tax full faith and credit pledge. The village will be making under the terms of the bond contract, payments to the county to enable the county to make the payments on the debt service. But also the request pursuant to the bond contract is that the county secondarily pledge its full faith and credit. And so when the bond resolution is before the county board for final adoption, it would require a 3/5 vote of the full board.
So, Bobby, what's the going rate for bonds these days, municipal bonds?
In the numbers that we presented about a week ago, 2.75%.
Is that pretty good in your estimate?
Very good, yes.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the question for the committee is to recommend adoption of a resolution to authorize issuance of sewage disposal bonds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The recommendation is made. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
At this time, we'll go ahead into interviews for the planning. Late yesterday, we had somebody drop out, so we only have 2 people applying for the 2 positions. They are the incumbents. So Jack and Joyce, if you want to come up. I don't know. We know who they are. Right. So, we're going to go ahead into interviews. I'd like to, this is kind of a formality since we only have 2 applicants, but in my view, they're very qualified and capable applicants. So I'll give each of you the opportunity to state why you'd like to continue serving on the Planning Commission. And we'll start with Joyce and then go to Jack.
I've served about 7 years on the Planning Commission altogether, and I've enjoyed it very much because I get to go out in the community, meet people, and see new projects that are being developed and new businesses that are happening. It's a way to give back to the community. I enjoy the people on the board that I work with, and those are the basic reasons.
Great. Thank you, Joyce. Jack?
Good morning, Commissioners. We're going to do a new land use plan and new regulations, new zoning ordinances, and I'll be one of 2 people that did it 10 years ago or 12 years ago or 15 years ago, however long ago it was. And I believe I can be of value. But I want to just state this, and this is very close. Public service is a privileged responsibility, which is earned, guarded, and with honesty and protected with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go into questions for from commissioners. We'll start with the representative on the Planning Commission, Commissioner Connor.
Thank you.
Microphone.
Jack, you got it pulled down a little bit better so we can hear you. So, at one time you thought you wanted to retire from this board, but you're going to stay on for the master plan. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Hopefully we'll get to that this year. And Joyce, the same thing. I know that, you were heavily involved before, so that's
Not in the master plan.
not on the master plan?
I wasn't.
Okay,
No, that
you weren't
was
there?
done before I got on the board.
Okay.
I think I served in 2011.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I thought you were involved on that too.
For 4.5 years, 2 as a commissioner, 2 before I was commissioner, and then I was a break, and then I just served the other 2 years. So.
Well, both of these individuals, I've only been on just since the beginning of the year, and both of these individuals have add a lot to that board, their knowledge and their ability to ask the right questions and look at the projects objectively. I appreciate your mentoring. So I don't have any other further questions. I appreciate your willingness to serve again, and it's going to be a big process with a master plan. I appreciate your willingness to stay on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hear me? I've been to the Planning Commission meetings, and both these applicants are doing a wonderful job, and I'd like to keep them both on there. I have no questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. John, do you have any questions?
I don't really have any questions. I just have one comment, and I read all the minutes from the Planning Commission, and I think there's some excellent questions asked, and I appreciate the differences of opinions that I see in the minutes. I think it's very good, and I think you all work well together. Don't always agree, but they work well together.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, I had the privilege of meeting Jack last time around. Nice seeing you this morning, Jack. For our new commissioner, this is mostly for my benefit. When you are you deal a lot with special use and things like that, as I understand. What are some of the criteria that you use to approve or deny those special use?
Commissioner, is that for me or for Joyce?
For both of you.
Okay.
Fight over who goes first.
Well, the master plan has criteria for just about anything you can think of, whether it's an animal shelter or a canoe livery. So there's specific things for different applications. But then there's a list of criteria, 7 criteria. I was going to print that off or bring it with me, and I didn't. But one of them that I can remember is that it is not going to change the character of the area, whatever is being done. That's one of the criteria. There's 6 more, and probably Jack has them all memorized. I always look at it.
I do not have them memorized. Look, our ordinances are pretty clear. It's how we interpret the ordinance, and there isn't a lot of room in there. There's not a room for there's room for our judgment, but there's not room for our opinions. For example, when you see our minutes and you hear our debates, it's because one of us might not feel that that's the correct place for that particular activity. But when we get done, if it's legal to be there, and if the board decides that my opinion is not in keeping with the rest of the board, it passes. And I can think of one area that I missed. Well, I'm sure I missed many more than this, but one area that I missed that turned into a problem, but it was too late for us to fix it. And that was a long time ago, and that was an education for myself. So, but there's not a lot of room for opinion. There is room for judgment.
Thank you, Jack and Joyce.
Commissioner Getty?
Serving on Planning Commission is often challenging but rewarding work. Have you taken advantage of any training through Michigan Association of Planning, conferences, or any other opportunities that have come up along the way? I'll let Jack answer first.
Yes, we get, since the pandemic, it's actually been easier because we get a monthly newsletter from the state planning state planning organization. So the education has been a lot easier. The county does provide us with payment for going to the classes, in-person classes that they used to put on. because I consider education to be useful everywhere I go, not just necessarily for planning. Shirley and I, through the years, have decided that we would pay for those ourselves. I'm not saying that's what other people should do, but that's what we do, because it's our education that we take throughout our lifetime, and that's important to us.
Early on, before when I was on the board in the very beginning, the county offered a course in being, or a training session in being on the Planning Commission, and that was very helpful. And one of the things I remember is that the Planning Commission is always supposed to say yes unless there are definite reasons to say no, and that the Board of Appeals is supposed to say no, and the onus is on the person to prove why it should be changed. So, and then I get the magazine through the planning departments that's sent out by the state. So,
Thank you. Education is really important. I would encourage you to take every advantage of opportunities as they come up, because these are complex issues, especially as you look at the master plan and future decisions before the county.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Good morning. I don't have any questions, but just want to say I appreciate your continued service, because it is some detail work and some detail thinking, and to have your continuation on those boards with good, bright minds is very helpful to the county. So it takes a while to get up to speed on everything involving planning and zoning and what you guys do, so it's great that you're back. Thank you.
Thank you. I served on the Planning Commission for a few years, and we had long meetings, but every time I left that meeting, every time, I felt proud about the individuals that I'm serving, that we have appointed. And these two folks have a tremendous heart for public service. And I learned a lot about what it means to be a public servant from both of them by serving. So it would greatly benefit the county to have you guys continue to serve. So with that, we don't have any other questions. If you guys would like to make a comment, we'll let you.
just that I appreciate that you are giving us this opportunity again, and hope to be back on the board.
I certainly appreciate the board's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Per the request of a member of the board, we'd like to take a 5-minute recess. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the board will stand at recess for 5 minutes. After interviews for the Animal Shelter Board. Not this one. So we're going to set up the tables for the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, and then we'll get started. So. I don't know right now. Okay. So we have three. Who do we have here in the room to interview? Do we put up the name tent so we can see who's...
Yep, I set them in front so that the
Okay.
individuals could all,
All right, the other individuals can come up too.
do you want them, is that how you'd like it, is all of them at once?
Yes.
Oh, I guess. Board will come to order. Have the individuals applying for the Animal Shelter Advisory Board to come up here to the front.
9:20, we're right on time.
All right, I guess we just have the one that is here.
What are the board's wishes? We're right on time.
Okay.
Well, Jessica, you're in the hot seat.
That's okay.
Thank you for your application. We, here at the county, need good, qualified citizens with a passion for service to apply. So I'm going to give you the floor to introduce yourself and share why you would like to serve on the Animal Shelter Advisory Board.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Bontrager. My husband and I moved to the area a little over a year ago. We came from Hudsonville. And we really enjoyed that area, but one thing we noted when we moved was that we wanted to be more connected and involved in the community. So since we've been moving here, we've been keeping an eye out for ways to get involved. This opportunity popped up, and it was something that I was interested in, thought I could add value to the board, but also find a good way to connect with others in the community and serve the community.
Thank you. We're going to start with questions from Commissioner Jackson, who serves on the ASAB. Commissioner?
Good morning, Jessica. Thank you for your application. Have you spent any time at the animal shelter?
I have not.
Okay. I see on your resume here it says that you are a CPA also.
Yes, correct.
Fantastic. It's always good to have a variety of experiences in there, and sometimes it's good to have good accounting eyes on different things going on. So that's awesome to have that. But appreciate your interest in the board. Our animal shelter, Mr. Ken Kirsch is here, and Tammy is here, some people that are intimately involved in that as well. I'd love to introduce you to after the interviews so you can see. But we have kind of reformed how the animal shelter works. We've got some good leadership in there. Everything has been going good, but we are, like I said, looking to put good minds and good people on that board. And the task of the advisory board is more of an oversight to take information in and offer guidance to the manager as we go through this. So have you had experience working with pets, with animals, anything outside?
Yes, I volunteered, not at specific animal shelters, but more like animal workshops or animal camps. I have 2 pets of my own. But one of the reasons I applied for the board was, as you mentioned, I am a CPA. I've been working public accounting for 7 years. And it develops some skills. Unfortunately, there aren't always clear answers to questions. So a lot of what I've developed during my time in public accounting is just, okay, these are our options. Let's present them. What's the best one? And that's what I'm kind of hoping to bring to the table for the board with my passion for animals and see how I can help.
Okay, awesome. So you haven't been connected with an animal shelter in the past as far as management running, anything like that?
No, not management running, more just on a volunteer basis.
Okay, awesome, awesome. No, I think you'd be a good addition. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica.
Commissioner Getty?
I appreciate your interest in serving. I wish all new residents to our community had that perspective, so thank you. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell?
I would just like to say it's always nice when we have somebody new to our community that's willing to step up and serve and better our community. We need more people like you here, obviously. Have you ever actually attended any of the meetings that they have had at the shelter here in Berry County yet?
I have not.
Okay. That's all I really have this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Smelker?
Thank you for applying.
So I work in Grand Rapids. The most volunteering that I do is for Junior Achievement and Kids Food Basket, so not specifically animal based, but I've been involved with both of those organizations for over 5 years. The volunteering that I've done for animal shelters has not been on a consistent basis with a specific shelter or specific location.
Thank you. Thank you for applying.
Commissioner Gibson?
I have no questions for Jessica. Thanks for applying.
Commissioner Connor?
Thank you. Thanks for your application and for applying and wanting to be a volunteer for this community. We don't know what we would do without our volunteers. We owe them a great debt because they give so much. I did have a couple of questions. One of them, and I've kind of run into this before, but it's with our program, because on her application it doesn't give a spot to list if you've been on any other boards before. I know you had a couple of organizations that you've been involved with. Have you sat on any governing boards before?
I've sat on planning committees, but not specific boards.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I did really enjoy your resume, and you have a statement in here. I am constantly working with various individuals on different teams, which has taught me how important communication and teamwork is. Can you give us an example of how that's worked for you in an instance where that was primary to how something was done or a decision was made?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my job, I have individual aspects that I'm working at, but I'm also always working with teams. And I can say that I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the support of my teams, both those above me and those below me. Where I'm at in my role right now, I'm a manager. And so my job is to oversee those on my team, but also to empower them and trust that they're going to get their work done. So without them being able to do that, and without me being able to trust them on a daily basis for all my engagements, I wouldn't be successful as a manager. Without those above me, empowering me and trusting me to get things done without micromanaging me, I wouldn't be successful as a manager. So it's really a teamwork on a day-to-day on all my engagements. That's what makes a team successful and me successful.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that very much, and thank you again for your application. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Jessica, again, thank you for making the trek out here and putting yourself in the hot seat. What made you decide to apply for a public board, being that you hadn't served on one before?
The biggest reason was wanting to be connected with the community more. There are always various events to volunteer at, but with the skills that I've developed in my job, I feel like I have developed a very specific skill set that I can maybe contribute in a significant way to a board just from what I've had experience with in the past. So with different organizations, I still like to volunteer. I'm going to continue to volunteer with, Junior Achievement, Kids Food Basket, things I've done in the past, but this was something that I felt like I had a passion for and that I could contribute something to the team that I hadn't done before.
Well said. Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, thank you for your time, Jessica. We'll make a decision soon.
Thank you.
Now, you want to break? Without objection, we will take that 5-minute break now. Hearing no objection, the board will stand at recess for 5 minutes. committee will come to order. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Jack Miner and Joyce Snow to serve on the Berry County Plan Commission for 3-year terms that begin on May 1, 2021 and expire on April 30th, 2024. That motion is made by Gibson, supported by Connor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So we have a few vacancies on the Animal Shelter Advisory Board. What are the board's wishes?
I would make a motion that we give Jessica one of those 2-year positions.
Support.
Motion by Gibson, supported by Jackson, to appoint Jessica Bottrager as a citizen at large for a 2-year term that begins on January 1st, 2021 and expires on December 31st, 2022 on the Berry County Animal Shelter Advisory Board. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we have Jim Dahl and Tammy Hayes. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2114, a resolution pledging the full faith and credit of the County of Berry with constitutional limits for the payment of the Cloverdale Drainage District 2021 drain bonds. Does anyone want to make that motion, bring it to the floor? Motion is made by Gibson. Is there support to bring it to the floor?
Campbell supports.
Support by Campbell. All right. Jim's passing out some information, so when he's ready, we'll open the floor to let him discuss this action.
What you just received is the Eagle permit to do the work on the Watson and the Cloverdale drain projects. This includes the permit that will allow work on the Crooked Lake Watson issue eventually when we get everything squared away. At this point, we are moving forward with the Long Lake, Cloverdale Lake improvements that were petitioned in March 20th of 2018. There's a lot of flooding on Cloverdale Lake. We've had numerous people on Long Lake that have contacted our office that they were flooded. But the petition was generated because of MDOT and the flooding on M43. They needed an outlet to take the water to Cloverdale Lake originally, and they have hence agreed to pay a goodly portion of this whole project. About what we're doing, and we've brought our financial advisor, Joe Kalani, and our legal counselor, Doug Kelly, with us to explain how the borrowings go to do these projects.
Good morning, Board. Thanks for allowing us to appear this morning. I just want to make a statement about the project itself overall. This really is the Cloverdale drain, full faith and credit. There's sometimes some confusion about whether it's a lake project. This is a drain project. You need the drain project in place before you can get to the other projects. This is not the Watson. This is just Cloverdale drain. This is not a lake improvement project. So just for clarity, the infrastructure that we're building is in the route and course of the drain, just to be clear. So, and then with that, I'll turn it over to the money guy, Joe Kalani.
Well, just to clarify, good morning to the committee of the whole. Is this
Speak up.
Oh, there we go. Well, good morning. First of all, I want to clarify, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm actually the note counsel or bond counsel for the drain district. The financial advisor in this is actually Benzinski, and Bobby Benzinski was here earlier, so he will be the financial advisor and assisting with the structure of this transaction going forward. What you have before you is a full faith and credit resolution pledging the county's limited tax of the county board, or excuse me, of the county of Barry. It's within constitutional limitations. This is a secondary security on this. The primary security on the bonds that will be issued for this project will come from the special assessments to the property owners within the drainage district and the public corporations that will be a portion part of the cost. So there's again, the county's credit in this circumstance is secondary security, which if we end up doing a public sale of these bonds or even a private sale of the bonds and a negotiated sale of the bonds, provides security for the purchaser of the bonds, additional security, which again affects overall interest rates and so forth, to the point where we should get a fairly decent interest rate on these bonds when we go to finance. Really, that's kind of what in terms of concern. If you have any concerns with pledging the full faith and credit, certainly I'm able to answer some of those questions.
Thank you. We'll go to questions from commissioners. Does any commissioner have a question or comment? Commissioner Jackson.
I have some input and some questions. I am very conflicted with this because you're asking us to pledge the good faith of the county and credit over what I view as a train wreck of a project. As you mentioned, Jim, M43 was closed for what, 6-8 weeks underwater. MDOT got involved. They asked us, or you wanted to create this Cloverdale Drain District, which at that meeting I was at, almost everybody was against with a few dissenting voices. Your hand-picked people voted for that Cloverdale Drain, and in my opinion, this was low-hanging fruit for your office to complete. We needed a few hundred feet of pipe to connect Cloverdale Lake to Long Lake with an upsized drain. We needed to improve some infrastructure at the end of Long Lake so MDOT could pump water off M43 and keep that open. One of the easiest projects. We built a dam on Gun Lake for $350,000. This probably should have been a $500,000 or $600,000 project to complete. But once again, led by what I view as the incompetence of the engineering firm you continue to work with, we decided to wrap this whole thing around the Watson Drain Project. The Watson Drain Project, as we know, is $2-some million. But the Cloverdale portion of this is now $2.2 million. So I look at this and I go, you want us to give our full faith and credit on this, but this project is, what, 400% over budget? I mean, how do we take something that was so simple that MDOT agreed to pick up the tab and pay almost entirely for, and because we took the Watson Drain, which has invasive species that aren't present in these other lakes, we now have filters and eagle and back and forth. And I look at this and I go, $600,000 in engineering cost. $50,000 filters, $182,000 in installation. I mean, I'm looking at this and something that I got to tell you, I don't know the answer to this, but you and I had a face-to-face conversation, and you told me that I asked you directly who was paying the tab for these pumps running from Cloverdale Lake to Long Lake, pumping water nonstop. And you said, I'm sending the bills to Jim Davis at MDOT every month. He's cutting the check.
Yep.
But when I look at the computation of cost, there's $122,000 in there for pumping.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm looking at this. I've got the bid in front of me, handwritten, $361,000 or something like that in cost, mobilization cost. I mean, there are so many things in here. And then $60,000 for tree and stump removal. Southern Berry County's got some of the best tree guys in the area, and we got to pay $60,000 to remove trees and stumps. So the cost to send the permit to Eagle was $650. But $600,000 later, we're still paying these engineers to do this type of stuff. So the bid was handwritten, filled out by one bidder. I understand there was 11 or 12 people that bid, but I don't know this for a fact, but my view is because of the fact the bid was out in March and you wanted the work done in May, that there was literally nobody who was probably worth their weight. These guys have jobs bid out sometimes years in advance, so there's nobody available on that short a notice. The water's down 1.5 feet on these drains. There's not an emergency situation. Why did we take one bid? Middleville was just up here in front of us with 4 bids.
Yep.
We know that the taxpayers, I can confidently say, I will give them my good faith because they did their research. They got 4 bids on a project. You come back with one with all these absorbent costs in this thing, a project that, in my opinion, is way over budget. I just don't get why we're sitting here looking at one bid. I think this is something that you should seriously consider to tap the brakes on this whole thing, get all these bidders back, and see if you can get the best deal possible for taxpayers, because I don't see any taxpayer protection in this at all. I see this being railroaded. I mean, Hope Township, $315,000. And just for note, for commissioners, I gave you this information because Berry County is paying $220,500. So thank you, Hastings, Middleville, Nashville, and every other taxpayer in Berry County, because there's not a printing press in the basement of the county throwing out $200,000. Right? This is paid by all the taxpayers in Berry County, and I feel with one bid, they're just not getting a fair shake on this. Sewer Authority, $200,000. Can't wait to see what our sewer bills look like in a few months from now when they have to recoup this cost. I mean, this is taxpayer money. I know almost $1 million of this is being paid by $1.2 million is being paid by municipalities. But I'm just, I look at this and I'm having a hard time having any confidence that I'm doing the taxpayers any justice. But I'm conflicted because I know the good faith of the county can get a lower rate. Are we getting a lower rate with our signature on this, or is drain projects typically are well-funded anyways?
Commissioner, I'm going to ask, do you have any further statements or specific questions for the Drain Commissioner or the individuals up here?
My question would be, first of all, for the bonding guy. If we vote no on this, is the rate going up for the taxpayers?
I'll answer the question in this way. Most likely, yes. And number 2, you will get very few purchasers who would be interested in purchasing your bonds. Without the county's full faith and credit, you're going to be limited to the number of purchasers in the marketplace to purchase your bonds. There are banks that we would be negotiating with respect to this. We try and get multiple banks, between 4, 6, or even more to bid on a note. The vast majority of banks will not purchase your note or your bonds without the pledge of the county's full faith and credit, which again is a secondary security on the note. The primary security being the special assessments and the apportionments to the public corporations that are part of this project. Moreover, even if the county, in the rare event that the county's security has to be invoked, the Drain Commissioner is obligated under the Drain Code to reassess the properties within the drainage district for any delinquencies in the event that there was a delinquent property owner that didn't pay their taxes. But you are limited in terms of the number of purchasers that would bid, and they bid basically, they bid on the interest rate, the true interest cost that they're going to bid on. if you do not have a pledge of full faith and credit, you're limiting your ability to get a good market rate. You're not having the competition in that interest rate. So the more banks that participate, and they're all fighting for this, by the way, so that's why you want to get as many banks to purchase, if we're going to go the negotiated sale and not do a public sale. When we go out for a request for
Can you
proposal.
clarify what's the difference between a negotiated sale and a public sale?
So a negotiated sale, very good question. A public sale is when you basically, when you sell bonds in the marketplace, you actually publish to the entire bond market and
Right.
underwriters. And so there's a preliminary preliminary official statement that gets published. The marketplace then it's published it follows the Security and Exchange Commission rules, and you get hundreds of different underwriters and bidders to bid on your bonds. A negotiated sale, you have to have a good basis for doing a negotiated sale. Usually it's because there's cost savings associated with a negotiated sale, because you have cost of issuance related to a public sale that further increase the cost to the taxpayers, because you have to do a preliminary statement, you have to go through a rating. A negotiated sale doesn't require a rating. If you go through a rating agency, you're going to pay $9,000 to $10,000 per rating agency to get a rating.
So I'm sorry.
For a public sale.
All right.
For a negotiated sale, you wouldn't have a rating. It's not required, and you can negotiate with several banks, and it's just like a regular. It's kind of almost like you're similar to a public sale, but you're not doing it through a publication. You're just sending out an RFP, and then they respond at the time.
So your recommendation here is for the public sale?
No, we're
Just for the
recommending right
negotiate.
now that we're going to proceed with a negotiated sale.
Okay.
And I think we're looking at a 20-year note. So that's another reason, when we look at notes versus bonds, there's in all due respect, there's really no different in terms of a note is just a bond, and a note are just basically a document that says who you owe and what they're paying for.
They both have debtors.
Yeah, they both have debtors, exactly. In this case, the plan is to do a 20-year note. We would negotiate with several banks and hopefully get a low interest cost. Now, I just did one for 15 years for a county up north. We had 4 bidders. It came in at 1.7%. So, and so what you do is you want to get a RFP out there with the structure of the transaction, and then have the bidders bid on it.
Okay, thank you.
But again, I just want to reiterate. I mean, I know I work with a lot of banks, and there are some that just will not bid on anything without a county's full faith and credit pledge.
Do you have any comments or?
Not on the full faith and credit. My thinking is anything we can save money on, we're going to try to do it. If this can get us a 0.25%, 0.5%, or any percent better interest rate, I think everybody wins. I will agree with Mr. Jackson. This cost of this project is way over what I would have estimated. But in retrospect, the one bid that we did get, and I'd be tickled to death, Dave and I can sit down and I can explain to him where all the extra costs. DEQ, when the permit came in, required us to put in a filter between Cloverdale and Long Lake that I don't understand the sense of it. It's to filter Kabamba, which is already in both lakes.
What's Kabamba?
It's an invasive weed. The water from Cloverdale to Long has went there since the beginning of time, but for whatever reason, DEQ required us to put a filter in, which I didn't mind the $80,000 for the filter. I mean, I didn't like it. I thought it was asinine. If you were going to protect the environment, you should put it on the outlet of Long Lake, where we don't know if Kabamba is down there. But this is what DEQ required. the $80,000 filter, plus the $20,000 electrical work, plus the $100,000 for sheet piling, because it all has to be installed under water level, plus the $131,000 in ductile iron fittings that you have to use. I mean, like Dave said, originally we thought we were going to put a simple pipe between lake to lake. The DEQ doesn't work that way. The engineering went on and on and on and on and on. I believe anybody you reach out to will find out that DEQ doesn't have the opportunity to give us, but they did, 8 correction requests, and a lot of the information was already in there. Our engineers just had to go back through and reiterate to them. Yeah, it went, the bid that Mr. Jackson commented on, I would expect $600,000. I talked to a couple of the excavators, and they thought it'd be around that till they saw the material list. And then they said, yeah, that $1 million is probably pretty close. It's just disappointing that we have to have a permit. Putting DEQ requiring that filter between Cloverdale and Long Lake is like having cattle and you put a really nice barn door on after the cattle are out of the barn. Doesn't make sense, but that's what they required. We don't know why. And I've yet to, when Audrey Kirk comes back from maternity leave, I'm going to sit down with her and ask her, why did you guys come up with this? And as for the filtering between Crooked Lake and Chain Lakes, that's another filter that we have to put in to take care of all the invasives coming from Crooked Lake. So the idea that this makes any sense whatsoever is beyond me. We have to have a 25 micron filter between our detention pond from Crooked Lake and Chain of Lakes because they don't want those invasives, which is 25 millimeter zebra mussel Vigler filter that we expected to put that filter in.
And who cleans out the filters?
We do. We're going to have to do it in our office. We have another thing built into this $2.1 million project is a 5-year plan to document everything going forward as we're moving, not only for the Crooked Lake water to go forward, we have that in a separate thing, but also the outlet of Long Lake to see what the impacts are downstream. The impacts of the Long Lake Bog, the Delton Marsh Bog, the metering. There's a lot of costs, and that's something I'll be talking to you guys again later about if we can get to a point where we have a full-time maintenance person that can help me to save money.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Connor? Please use the microphone, John.
Jim, do you see any benefit of maybe putting this back out for bid again and getting a little more competition on this?
We discussed it at length. The problem is with this COVID stuff, concrete has doubled in the last 6 months, so this bid came in before that. Plastic has went up 20%. The filters, they haven't changed much. And really, when you go item by item, these guys were pretty reasonable. The box culvert was reasonable. Of course, we have to put in a bypass on the outlet of Long Lake. That's $60,000 to put mats through the stream because there's 6 or 8 people living down there, and the law says that you can't cut off the fire trucks from getting in there. So that was, you got $60,000 there. I think the hard costs of the outlet of Long Lake were roughly $150,000. The original hard costs for Cloverdale to Long would have been around $150,000, and the work for MDOT was the tree clearing and putting a pipe in was about $100,000. So that's how we came up with MDOT's bill of they're doing $400,000 on the hard costs plus $200 and some thousand on pumping and a little bit more. Jim Davis, as far as I know, has agreed to. He's going to foot the bill for about $650,000, which is basically your crossings, which is exactly what he asked for. Because we told him you can't take water off, and everybody's screaming to get MDOT open, And I said, that's great. But I said, until we get Cloverdale down, we cannot pump water from M43 into a flooded lake without taking a whole lot of liability. But yeah, I mean, we did discuss it at length. We had about a week-long argument back and forth. The engineers did get with Mead Brothers and say, I said, we're not doing 1.1 million. We ain't doing one bid. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't look good. Mead Brothers, we cut out one valve. It's a shutoff valve that, in my opinion, wasn't absolutely necessary. The cost of the valve, it says, itself is $48,000 plus $15,000 to hook it up underwater. So we cut that out. Mead Brothers agreed that if the sewer authority, we don't know where their main is. They've told us, but some of the stuff that they've told us hasn't panned out correctly. If the sewer authority main is in a different spot, which I expect it is, they can knock $13,000 out. There was different things that we could knock off the bid that took it from $1,079,000 down to about $920,000. So we worked with them trying to save $100,000 off that project. But their catch basins are right on the money. Their bypass, I thought, was very reasonable. The box culvert was reasonable. A lot of the costs were like, oh, yep, I understand that. But it's just a hell of a lot more expensive project than anybody would have dreamed.
I agree with you, Jim, that I'm real hesitant on one bid on a $2.2 million job.
Yep.
What are the board's wishes?
So you're agreeing this should have been a $600,000 project, $500,000 project, that's $2.2 million.
No. The hard costs. If we didn't have to put that filter in, which was required by DEQ, you can save almost $500,000 on that bid.
We could save $321 if we could figure out what mobilization costs are and why coming from Springport, Michigan is $321,000.
$100,000 of that is they have to put 25-foot sheet piling all the way around where they're going to box that off to install underwater.
Mobilization costs are typically defined as moving equipment and personnel into an area where the work is being done.
Yep.
The sheet piling is separate.
They have to hire a crew to do it, and that was the number they got from the subcontractor to get this done. Because I said,
should that even be listed as mobilization cost?
They didn't have a better line in the bid to put that in. That's why we went back, because like I say, I said, you don't spend $300,000 moving a crane or two up here. But when you get a lot of this subcontracted work, you end up more than what I would have expected. But I understood the sheet piling afterwards. They're going into a swamp. You got to put 25-foot sheets down. You got to go, I think it's 50 feet this way, 25 feet this way, 50 feet back that. You got to drive that sheet piling down. I think it sticks up out of the ground 2 feet, but you're digging underwater. And with the marsh, they feel you have to have 25-foot sheets to hold it. To put it in perspective, the Gun Lake sheets are only 14.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I would feel we pledge the faith and credit of Berry County a lot when we have confidence in the bid. I just don't have confidence in this bid with one bid. I'd like to see you come back with 2 or 3 or 4 bids. I mean, I think we hear all these crazy conspiracy things about governments and how they run amok in the good old boy system, and then we give them this. There's just no confidence in this. There's no confidence in this that maybe it is the best deal, but we don't know because we don't have anything to prove it.
Yeah.
There's nothing out there. So I almost feel like we should table this and
Hold on, before you make any motion, Commissioner, is there any other discussion or questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Getty.
What would be the effect of delaying this to get more bids if the water is down right now?
Can I make a comment on Excuse me, may I make a comment on this? Doug Kelly. I was not involved in the bidding, but I did go over it afterwards, and I will say our fear is that if we put it back out, and we could, he has every right to reject all bids and rebid it, that it's gonna come back higher based on unit prices. That struck me when I don't know as much as the engineers or Jim about it, but when I looked at it and I did the math on the unit prices, if they come back higher, then how long do we go? Reject that one again and the next one after that. And then my only other comment, I recognize this is probably more than the board expected. With respect to the sewer authority, we did the math on that. That's going to be an additional $3 to $4 a year for each user. Believe it or not, it is. It's a big bill, but considering the number of users, that the benefit of having more users, more people in the district, and spreading it over time does help it make it more affordable. So that mitigates that. It is, Jim certainly can reject the bid, but he made the decision as the drain commissioner to take this bid. After I know he did a lot of work on it, and a lot of work to get these numbers done, and a lot of grinding. What happens if we do it again? I mean, what happens to these unit prices and everything? The numbers weren't working. So I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we did go through that exercise. He went through the exercise with the engineers. So just so you know, we looked at this 16 ways a Sunday, and it is possible it could get worse. I'll say that. So.
We did discuss. Yeah, we did discuss rebidding it. Of course, we would have to figure out. The first thing is, yes, we are tickled to death that the water is quote unquote down. We are in April. Last year, if anybody remembers, May 12th, we got 7 inches of rain in 5 days. That's going to put Cloverdale up roughly 10 to 12 inches from where it is. We'll have flooding there. Crooked Lake, yes, it is. We have been through the authorization of DEQ. We have been able to pump all through the winter and hold that lake at 927.4, which still isn't the 924.4 we'd like to see, which is 3 feet lower. If we could rebid this. We bid this way back in March. Now, if we did it now, we could bid it out in the next 2 weeks, get probably the same contractors, and so what do we set as our bid date? Done by the end of the year? Do you want people from Crooked Lake not understanding why we're not moving any water off their lake? I mean, I know a number of you guys enjoyed the Crooked Lake people showing up why things weren't done. I mean, I have no problem with it. I can do it and say, the commissioners asked me to rebid this. So we're going to have, to realistically get a good bid, you've got to give them 6 months. I'll be the first one to admit it. That's what I harped on the engineers. We need to have this bid out in January if we're going to do this work in May. The problem is DEQ didn't follow our timeline. They didn't give us a permit. Our final permit, our draft permit that I had to countersign, we just got, 2 weeks before we bid this. It was sad. If we could have had our permit in hand late last fall, if we could have had our permit in within a year of when we submitted it, that would have been September, October last year. That would have been nice. 6 months, hey, great. You try to bid something and get somebody to, in the winter it's different, I understand. If you were going into winter and everybody's slow, they'll respond. But this time of year, the big boys, Ross Jackson had just picked up a $5.2 million project. He's done, that filled his calendar. Scott Pavlak, who just did the Early Curtis and give us a phenomenal deal. He's got to start one for a county up north, a $12.1 million. It's just a bad, really terrible time of year to bid a project. So, and like I say, we reached out to Jim Davis. He wanted to look over the bids. That's what he does. And he said, yeah, it's better to move forward with it than to try to rebid it, especially with costs going up on everything. Concrete is literally, concrete pipe, or a steel pipe last year was $120 for a 20-footer. This year it's $240. That's from St. Regis. Everything is just nuts right now. And I don't see it coming down unless we want to wait a few years. So.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any other questions or comments?
I have a comment, Ben. I do agree with Dave and John. Seems like not a good direction to go in when we only have one bid on anything. Our whole lives are built around getting the best price and all this, but we have an unusual situation here also. We have a project that needs to be done, and we also have a situation where prices and stuff have just went astronomically crazy this year. And as a commissioner, we are supposed to try to give the best bang for the buck for our constituents. And in this situation, there may be a spot there where we have to not cut off our nose to spite our face because of not having the additional bid. We come back and we're going to look, to me, in bad view of the constituents if we had a chance to get it for $2.2 million, which I can't hardly believe the number, and it comes back and we end up having to approve it at $3 million or something ridiculous figure. So I'm just saying there's a lot involved here that makes it very difficult to come up with the right decision. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there further comments or John?
Jim, do you know this company? Have they worked for you before?
Yeah, they did Fine View for us 2 years ago. We had, I don't know how many bids, and they were the lowest one on that one.
Is it Mead Brothers?
Yeah.
I work with them. They're a good contractor. I've worked with them in other counties, and they've got the know-how to do this.
Is there further discussion? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, the question before the committee is to recommend adoption of a resolution for the credit of the county of Berry with constitutional limitations for the payment of 2021 bond for Cloverdale Drainage District. And clerk will call.
Campbell.
Yes.
Connor. Getty.
Yes.
Gibson. Jackson.
No.
Smelker.
No.
Geiger.
Yes. Motion passed. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Pam Palmer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have 2 items. First being jury board.
Yes, I am here today to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the reappointment of Ann Richards to serve on the jury board for a 6-year term based on the recommendation of Circuit Court Judge Vicki Ospaw. Ann has served in the past. In fact, she's been on the jury board since about 2006, as her memory served her. She's been on a long time, and I did touch base with her. She wishes to continue on the jury board, and so I'm recommending that she be approved.
Thank you. So the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners reappointment of Ann Richards to serve on the Berry County Jury Board for a term of office from May 1st, 2021 through April 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Motion is made by Smelker, supported by Gibson. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to upgrade the Vital Record software from Tyler Technology Incorporated to Fiddler Technology. Now, I do understand we have an individual from Fiddler here.
Yes.
Why don't you come up?
This is Scott Moore from Fiddler Technology, who's here with me today.
So, this is this software package is of vital importance to Vital Records. Sorry.
We use the same pun internally.
So, I'd like Scott to and Pam. We'll start with Pam first to explain what this software does, how it interacts with our other county departments, and why it's necessary to make this purchase. So.
Well, I started looking around probably a little over a year ago for different software, and when Fiddler Technology offered a webinar and I attended it, it drew more interest out of me. I don't typically seek out salesmen, but I did invite Scott to my office for a demonstration, and I really liked what I saw. Fiddler has a lot of features that would be beneficial to our office, particularly at this time when we're working with the public who doesn't necessarily want to come into our office. This software accommodates that. So some of the features that Fiddler software offers is the ease of use for both the public and my staff. The ability for the staff to work easily from with the software from home if necessary, and we have experienced that 3 or 4 times over the past year. Customer convenience. The customer can interact with our office without the necessity of coming to our office. They make online payments. They fill out an application for the document that they want, say a marriage license, a birth certificate, such. They can make the payment online, and then we get the information. We complete the form. It shows up in a queue on the staff screen. They complete the information, and then they can provide it to the customer either by mail or by email. Receipt of the document without the necessity of coming to our office for pickup. Marriage licenses can be applied for and obtained without coming to our office. A conference call to administer the oath over the phone is allowable. Marriage licenses get uploaded to the state of Michigan at the end of each month by a click of the button. In other words, we collect marriage licenses over the course of a month. We scan them, and then we have to physically mail them to the state of Michigan. This is all in the software program. We put in a date range of when we want to report marriage licenses. We click the button, and it automatically goes to Lansing. It's a huge time saver and a big convenience for also the state of Michigan. There are electronic certifications on documents. So when I have to certify a document, say a death certificate or a marriage license or whatever that needs to be certified, we can do that electronically. Uploading of driver's license for identification and verification purposes, those can be uploaded so that we can verify the person is who they are, saying they are, that are requesting this document. Funeral homes will have the ability to request death certificates. The software uploads information and then is sent back to the funeral home to be printed at a cost savings to the funeral home. They don't have to come to our office anymore to pick up individual death certificates. And then at the end of the month, we go through with a date range for Gerbach Funeral Home, and it tallies up and it spits out a bill that we can send to them electronically again. So I think Scott told me during one of his presentations that it costs an individual $11 and some odd cents to cut a check. Am I right?
It was a while ago. Someone from Bank of America told me that. Now, Bank of America is very large, so.
We have kind of polled our funeral directors when they come in to see if this is something, an idea that they would be perceptive to, and only having to write the one check at the end of the month, and they loved it. And they also loved the idea of not having to interrupt their day to come in and pick up death certificates. Although they still have the ability to do that if they want to. If there's some funeral director that does not want to get them electronically, they can come in and pick up the physical ones as well, as with any other document. Birth certificates are completed and automatically uploaded to the state of Michigan by the hospital or licensed professional. We certify and maintain a record in our office. So again, the state of Michigan loves this concept of being able to retrieve our birth certificate information electronically. This provides and maintains security for the customer. Scott might jump in on this with me. The vital record information is backed up in 5 different locations in case someone tries getting through our firewall. He assures me that there's 5 different locations that this information goes to in the cloud, that we can still access our information even if there's an attempt to get into it with fraud. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, we can't prevent ransomware from coming to the county, but what we can assure you is that should that happen to the county, there are 3 instances of the repository that are backed up at our internet service provider location in Des Moines, Iowa, and 2 more in an internet service provider location in New Jersey. These internet service providers are telco grade. There are people that walk around with guns all the time. You need retina scan to get in. Facebook and Google are also clients at these internet service providers. It's a very, very high-end facility.
So all in all, Fiddler has a lot of features. I did interview another company, and it was a very good company. I know some of my colleagues in other counties have has that particular program. I just think Fiddler has technology that is less clicks on your computer to get the document that you want. Other companies are electronic also, but this one seemed to be very short-streamed to get what we want. So all in all, I think that they offer a lot of features that are beneficial to my staff as well, and especially for the public. Any questions for us?
Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Connor, then Commissioner Getty.
No intent on raising any costs at this point. I will say, I think I remember in the demonstration there was a $1 convenience fee.
That's configurable. That's up to you.
Oh, okay. I don't have any plans to raise prices at this point. I didn't mention the cost of this. It's in the packet here. It's $27,000 per year. So I went back to Tyler, which is what we have now, and our bills are very generic in nature when we get them. It says, I brought one for reference. I paid $20,000 and some odd dollars for financials support. So, and then another one, $4,000.
Financial support to who?
Exactly. Fixed assets was $4,000 something. So I started peeling back the onion to figure out exactly what I was paying for my vital records, and it came out to about $18,500. No, $18,500 a year. So Fiddler is a little bit more, but we're going to be prorated for this year, so I haven't asked for any additional money to from the county. I think I can do this within budget. We don't start getting billed until we go live with this program. And then I can set the date as to when I want my yearly bill to come. So I would probably set that for around February after the budget is done and we have our buckets filled back up. A year. No, a year.
Commissioner Getty?
I think it's a great idea to make getting your records and submitting records online, not just because of the pandemic, but it's brought that to light and pushed us in that direction a little bit faster than probably we would have gone naturally. I'm a little concerned about records of this nature and the security of identity theft. How is that monitored with online applications?
I can. So if someone is requesting a copy of a record, I'll answer it two ways if you allow me. If someone's requesting a copy of a record, Pam is correct, you must upload the front and back of your driver's license. But beyond that, we partner with a credit agency down in Atlanta. When all of us were younger and started our credit profiles, they have everything. In that, the requestor has 2 opportunities to answer 4 questions correctly. If they miss even one, it boots them out. I did it myself. I'm 56 years old. I did it myself, and I missed it once. It asked questions like it asked me what color my car was in 1986.
What color was it?
Red. That one I knew. The one I did not know, what was my house number in 1992? I couldn't think of that one. You are the person if you get those 2 series of 4 questions correctly. You are that person, or you're the greatest hack ever. So those 2 things combined are what provide that security. As far as the integrity of the records themselves, I can't speak in techno jargon, but there are over 100 counties that we work with right now that do have their information with us into the cloud. Largely the reason they do it is because of a cost savings, number 1, but number 2, the security architecture that we have built in-house.
And I will say, Catherine, that I'm of the older generation, I hate to say, that is used to going into some place and ordering your document and whatever, but I think the generations to come are the ones that want to sit in their living room on their couch in front of their laptop or on their phone and order a document and have it be there like that. I think it's the technology of the new age.
Any further questions? Who?
This is going to make your department more efficient. It won't replace any jobs or anything.
It will not replace any jobs. It's going to make my vital record clerk perhaps a little more up to date on her. I mean, she's always behind, and it's not because she's not working hard. There's just constantly vital records to provide. So, and plus she does a number of other things. So this will not eliminate any jobs.
Commissioner Smelker.
On your 100 and some counties you have, can you tell me how many of them are in Michigan?
21.
Thank you.
I'll also add that we are a Michigan corporation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to upgrade Vital Record software from Tyler Technology Incorporated to Fiddler Technology. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I don't have someone moving or seconding that motion.
Support.
We brought it to the, did we bring it to the floor?
No.
Let me go back. The chair would entertain, forget that vote ever happened. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to upgrade Vital Record software from Tyler Technology Incorporated to Fiddler Technology.
So moved.
Motion is made by Smelker, supported by Gibson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you very much.
How are we doing, Commissioners? Good. Let's keep going. Register of Deeds, Barb Hurlis, with request to upgrade land records recording software from Tyler Technology to Fiddler Technology. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to upgrade land records recording software from Tyler Technology to Fiddler Technology.
So moved.
Support.
That motion is made by Smelter, supported by Jackson. Discussion. Morning, Barb.
Good morning.
Good to see you. So we have a request here, again, moving from Tyler technology to Fiddler technology. So what would this software upgrade mean for your office?
It mean a lot less frustrations, what it would mean, but I could mirror a lot of what Pam would say, but I think basically it would be an improvement for the community. It would make our office a lot happier, and I think Scott, if he could speak and explain
Absolutely.
exactly what he offers us, it would be good. I think he can explain it better than anybody because that's his job.
So, just for a few seconds, the Register of Deeds is a kind of an enigmatic office. It's not widely understood, the real value that it provides to the community, but it's remarkable. All of us, if we've ever had a mortgage, ever in our lifetime, can thank the Register of Deeds for that. Not just this one, all of them. And the reason for that is largely at their core, what the Register of Deeds does is provide a definition of collateral. No bank's going to give a mortgage at a secured rate without understanding what they're going to get back. So that is, everybody in the community that has ever had a mortgage is affected by this office. So I just wanted to put that foundation out there. Usually the public may not understand what this office does unless something goes awry. And by things going awry, there are companies that provide title insurance. And if they are not able to see everything correctly or understand everything correctly, it affects them in how much they pay in their insurance claims, or a claim is filed against them actually. But it also affects the homeowner. Pam had mentioned in the past sitting in on court cases that involve something called quiet title. Quiet title is a pain in the backside, it's very expensive, and it's preventable. Where it's preventable, our software has specific features that if someone, let's say there is a subdivision that has 12 lots in it, lots 1 through 12, and someone in the title company, not nefariously, but fat fingers and hits a 3, so it comes in as lot 13. That's a piece of property that doesn't exist. And under today's circumstances, that document would get filed and nothing more would be said. In our case, we're going to recognize that that's not a piece of land that exists. And what the software will do is automatically send a communication, an email to the submitter saying, it's a tap on the shoulder saying, you should look at this. Because you're either going to look at it now or your homeowner's going to have to look at it in 7 to 10 years when they go to sell their house. And it's a huge benefit to the homeowner. We also have, keeping with the theme of a pandemic and let's keep people out of the courthouse, we have functionalities for people to submit documents electronically, but then also receive them back after they've been processed and recorded electronically. Let's keep traffic out of the courthouse when we can. There's also a separate functionality within the software called Property Fraud Alert, which is designed to protect or notify people if there's a fictitious document filed in their name. The FBI has categorized deed fraud as the fastest growing white collar crime in America, and that was in the year 2020. What it means, it's so easy to do. I can go to OfficeMax, I can go to Staples, and I can buy something called a quitclaim deed. And I can fill that out, I can have it notarized, and I can present it for recording, and I'll just use, this is not a real world example, but if my sister, I grew up on a farm, and so my father's passed away and my mother owns the farmland now. If my sister wanted to file a quitclaim deed, quitclaiming my interest in the farmland to her, she could, and I wouldn't know about it. I wouldn't know about it till my mother passed away and then attorneys got involved. In this world, I would get an email as soon as that document's recorded, and it would allow me to intervene, it would allow me to have a discussion with my sister, obviously, but it protects your homeowners against these type of things. A bad person could file a power of attorney, I'm just looking at you, a power of attorney against you. Well, that means I can sign as you, and you wouldn't know about it. So I could go out and get a second mortgage in your name. So this is going to notify all these people. And we have a call center as well, too. The most vulnerable the most vulnerable age group for property fraud is the elderly. They have a lot of equity, and sometimes capacities may be slipping a bit. They're also the same people that would prefer not to receive an email, going to be very suspicious of that, and not even sign up via a computer. So we have a call center based in Iowa, so people speaking all native English, where people can call up and ask questions. They can sign up by calling us, and they can, if they do receive an alert, they can ask us, what does this mean? I just received this notice. What does it mean? We can talk them off the ledge and explain what's going on. It's a huge service for them. We also have, we have very high-end security technology built in within our products, and we have language into the agreement that's sitting before you that commits to an increase in your internet copy revenue. The Register of Deeds information is very, very valuable, and companies go to great lengths to try and take it. There's terms called web harvesting, internet pirates. They will go on and grab stuff if they can without paying for it. We have technology in place. I will never sit before you and say that we can prevent it, because in the cybersecurity game, when we were children, did you ever go to a carnival and play whack-a-mole, where you hit the mole and then two others pop up and you hit that? That's what cybersecurity is. So you're constantly trying to stay ahead of people, but the technology that we have in place right now is superior to anything else in the market. A real-world anecdote I can tell you is that St. Joseph's County, just south and a bit west of you, switched over to us at the end of 2019. Her last full year on her previous vendor, she made $11,000 on her internet service revenue. The first full year with us, she made $133,000. So that just kind of shows the appetite that is out there, and we do a pretty good job of making sure that we want them to have access to it, for heaven's sakes. But there is a statutory fee set by the state of Michigan. They should pay that.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Smelker.
Scott, I know this is probably going to sound like a dumb question, but I do have a reason for asking it. You do have this software, and it's nothing that's in research and development and coming down the line, right?
I need you to repeat that. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear with the clicking there.
You do have this software, and it's nothing, what you just described is not in research and development that you're going to have in the future. You have it now.
That is correct. Everything that I've mentioned is in full production.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Connor.
What's wrong with that heater?
I know. The building thought it was a stupid question, I guess. So.
It could be. It's
Commissioner
not,
Connor.
though, Ben.
It was not a stupid question. I agree.
No, that was based on the number of copies that were made. The state of Michigan has a statute that for every copy that is made, so if there is a document that has 4 pages, the state of Michigan says that should cost $4. So that's where that money is coming from.
But it's the same record. It just happens that the record's 4 pages long?
Correct. It's best said perhaps by the page. It's not. The state of Michigan has statutes that are set out that Michigan Register of Deeds must follow, one of which is a copy fee of $1 a page. I don't know the statute number, but it is $1 a page. So this is just, that money is for the number of copies that were made, whether they were made by a user in California, Louisiana, New York, or Michigan.
It's an electronic copy, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a paper copy.
It is, yes, they receive, I mean, there's an image of it on the screen, and they must print it out. Correct. If someone wants a certified copy, which has the crimp on it, that still must be provided by the office in a manual fashion.
Okay, so they're printing it themselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they're paying for the electronic image at $1 a page.
Correct. A good way to look at it would be to state that the $1 a page is per statute. Their own toner and their own paper is their convenience fee.
Right. The record, the dollar page isn't paying $1 for the sheet of paper that it's printed on. It's $1 for the information on it. On each page. Correct. So people that come into the registrar's office, well, why do we have to pay, this amount for a piece of paper? Well, it's not the piece of paper. It's it's the information on it.
Correct.
So then, Barb, to the agenda item request in the last paragraph before the time frame of action, you have on here, Fiddler System also has a wage and charge separately in accordance with our ordinance of $1 per minute for track searching, for time spent searching for the track. So being caught on the certified crack and having the ability to charge for this access means significant additional revenue for Berry Township. Does that mean it takes longer to search?
No, right now, we do not have that track index online. You have to come into the office. But Fiddler has a way of putting it on, making sure it's secure. People that are able to go in, I think, do they have to have a contract with us?
Yeah, they have to have a contract with your office. The speed at which they're searching is dependent on their internet speed. So if someone is sitting in the middle of the sticks and they use something called DSL, or for heaven's sakes, dial-up. I'm from a town of 500, so this is a metropolis for me. But if they're using a dial-up connection, yes, it's going to take them a while. But if someone has just, your rig, this would be far sufficient to produce a favorable experience for them. But getting to the tract, there's two ways that someone can search for property, and that is using grantor grantee, which means the name, Scott Moore, Lana Moore, Wells Fargo Bank. Those are the names on the document, the grantors and the grantee. That searching is provided as per Michigan statute at no charge within her office. If someone wants to search on a tract, that is searching for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Green Acres subdivision, or the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 24, Township 4, Range 13. You can get into the legal description. Michigan has, is that an ordinance or a statute?
It's a statute.
It's a statute where you're allowed to charge $1 per minute when you search on those parameters. So if someone is searching on those parameters, the system is smart enough to know that to start running the clock at $1 a minute, and then it automatically produces an invoice at the end of each month to which they can use to invoice. However, if they're searching on Scott Moore, Lana Moore, and Wells Fargo, that time's not accruing. Also, within the system, if someone is searching on that tract and they get a phone call, they get distracted, the system automatically times them out in 3 minutes. So, if they get distracted and go away for lunch, for heaven's sakes, they're not going to accrue, $60 in charges because they went and had a meal. It will log them out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Getty?
I've heard from township assessors frustration with accessing documents, the cost of accessing them. Would this allow for better service to our township assessors?
Any of those assessors who have told you that there's a cost is not telling you the truth. We have never charged an assessor for any copies. We don't even have to provide the copies. We just have to provide the information, which we do. At the end of every month, we pull a report and send it to them. But we also have always sent in the register deeds free copies. So they've always got free copies for their area. The past register deeds opened up the entire website for them to search, and that's what they're not happy with, because now they can't search everything. They can only search the documents that pertains to their business. But there has never been a fee. Never has been, probably never will be.
Would they get quicker access than end of the month through this project?
Yeah, we have, it's, there's a product that is included in the suite that you have in front of you. It will automatically stream the document types of their interest. So if they have 6 document types that they want, it will stream them every night to a file location within their computers. So when they come in the morning, they click on C:\\/ City of Hastings or whatever, they will be there automatically.
And what we do right now is at the end of every month, we make sure everything was proofed. We have it in our system now where we can download all those images, but then we have to manually take them from a drive and drop them into a website where they can access them. And they access only in their township or city or village.
Another question. Through errors in legal descriptions, like you talked about, lot numbers, but it's created gaps for legal descriptions throughout the county. Does it proof the legal description itself when it's entered?
The way the software works is that when you're entering a legal description, the OCR functionality that's built inside of it, will automatically show you different ways that are very, very close that it's also been indexed. So that if you're indexing Lot 1, Block 1 of the Green Acres subdivision, and Green Acres is 2 words in this example, but it also finds in the repository where Green Acres was 1 word. It will put that on there. And if green was abbreviated, for heaven's sakes, GRN, it'll put that on there too. And so the purpose, there is something within Michigan statute called minimum indexing standards. There is certain information that they must enter, but there's no maximum statute. And the only reason that office enters information is one reason only, so that document can be found. We allow them the functionality to enter additional things for that purpose, so that it can be found accurately, because you're right. A gap, missing a document, it's a very bad thing for the title company, the bank, and the homeowner.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to upgrade land records recording software from Tyler Technology to Fiddler Technology. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, I'd like to take a 3-minute break. Hearing no objection, the board will stand at recess for 3 minutes.
That's our drain commissioner.
Committee will come to order. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval for the Register of Deeds to hire a temporary part-time employee to work up to 19 hours per week for up to 3 months at $13.50 per hour to proof and clean up images to be entered into the computer system from the track index books.
Support.
That motion is made by Gibson, supported by Smelker. Discussion. So what do we have here? Barb?
Well, the Automation Fund, as you probably know, and maybe the newer commissioners don't, in every document that we record, we collect $5. It's a state statute, and we set it aside for technology and upgrading and getting historical things into the system. With what has happened over the last few years with the abstractor leaving and not fill that position, it's important that we do something with that track index to get it out there so customers don't have to come in and use the books, where they can do it online, but they have to be licensed or signed up with us to be able to use it, and it still charges the very same fee that the commissioners has set forth. But this track index was microfilmed back, I think, in 2009 by Darla, but we've never had time to really proof it. And looking at it, it's all in the system. We've got it all in. I've actually got it indexed so we can find each section of the Berry County in there very easily, jump between sections. But every now and then you're going to find a few pages that when they microfilmed them, they didn't remove sticky notes and different pages. So we want to go through before we can put this online for title companies and attorneys or whoever to use this. We want to make sure it's perfect. And so that we could be used, the Automation Fund can be used for that. We would like to do that. It will depend a lot on if the abstract position no longer exists, because if that's the case, state statute says that that track index goes back under the Register of Deeds office, and then I could use that Automation Fund to clean that up. If the commissioners choose to have an abstractor, the abstractor right now is under Mr. Brown, the county administrator, so I wouldn't be able to use that. It's a different office. But we can talk about it, you can make a decision, and then further down, Mr. Brown's going to speak on the abstract position.
Discussion? So what's the total cost of this request?
I'm not sure, and I have a feeling that it's not going to take more than 2 months, 3 at the very most. It's just a matter of hiring somebody to proof every page of those those books that we have in there, and it goes pretty fast. You can see if there's something on there, but it would not. I don't believe it'll take more than 2 months. I did set it at the rate that my other indexer that indexes historical records was set at for years. We've always had somebody indexing, so I did set the rate at that.
Okay. Discussion? Vivian?
So the person that used to do it isn't available to do it anymore, or was that the person that left?
As far as proofing it?
Yes.
There has never been anybody who's proofed it.
Oh, I thought you said there was someone who proofed historical records.
No, they index historical records for the Register of Deeds, and that's just the grantor grantee. The Register of Deeds only searches and indexes by the grantor grantee, and the abstract office always posted the legal descriptions and takes care of all the track index, meaning searching by the legal description.
The person that you're going to hire, what knowledge will they have of what should be on a record and what shouldn't be on a record?
They're going to actually take what's in the computer right now, and all the images are in there. I've got them all in there. They're all indexed. But they're going to make sure that every page that's in these books throughout all of our track books match what's in the computer system. So they really don't have to have a lot of knowledge of the track index. They just have to be able to physically look at those and say, yes, this is all here. No, the bottom's cut off. This one has a page over it. We need to rescan this in. But we need to have it all proofed so it's accurate.
So what was the sticky notes and...
If you understood the track index, when the abstractor would post something over the years, and something was really complicated, they'd stick sticky notes in it. They'd write things on paper and staple it to this one. Because what the track index book is each area is posted what documents come in at a certain time, not by the name, by the grantor or grantee, but by the legal descriptions. And sometimes something would overlap, so they'd stick a little note in there saying, here's what happened, and those weren't removed when they were microfilmed.
But it's a valuable part of the record, probably.
True, but there's also writing underneath that it's just as valuable.
So do you just add that on to the end, or just remove it completely and it's lost?
No, you could leave it there, but you're going to have to add it to another page so you can still read what is there. Yeah, it's all valuable information.
Oh, okay, that's what I wondered.
Mm-hmm.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval for the Register of Deeds to hire a temporary part-time employee to work up to 19 hours per week for up to 3 months at $13.50 per hour to proof and clean up images to be entered into the computer system from the track index books. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Register. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the following position changes resulting in a net position increase of 0.5 FTE, eliminating the county abstractor position, 1 FTE, eliminating the IT help desk GIS technician position, 1 FTE, adding a GIS technician position, 1 FTE, and adding an IT help desk office manager position, 1 FTE, and adding 0.5 FTE deputy register of deeds position to post legal descriptions and verify indexing. Is there anyone want to make the motion? Motion by Gibson. Is there support? Support reluctantly. No, your mic's far away. Support from Smelker. Discussion. So we have a lot of adjustments here to the county employee system here. What do we got going on?
We do. There's admittedly a lot going on here, and it involves 3 departments, if you may. So I'm going to start with the county abstractor for a minute, and the impetus behind all of the change. And that's we have maintained for a number of years an abstractor and an abstract department. The abstract department was originally, if I recall, down and housed with equalization. It was then housed in Register of Deeds, and upon the retirement of our last abstractor, Bindi, we sought, when I say we, Dave Schinover and I worked to try to replace that position. We advertised. We had some candidates, not spot-on candidates, but we did have some candidates. And then COVID hit. We did not end up hiring anybody, so we've had that position vacant for some time now. And as we began to look at the need throughout and in having that position vacant, it became more likely to me that that's not a position that we necessarily need to replace. There are some aspects of the job that we need, but we don't perform the full aspect of an abstractor anymore. We do continue to maintain a tracked index, which the Register of Deeds, Barb, talked about earlier. And we do some work internally, but in performing what is considered an abstract, where we have somebody that's qualified in fact, highly qualified to review property records entitled to do a chain of title for a title insurance company, for example, what's considered an abstract. We just don't do anymore. We don't get that work. Dave and or Barb can maybe talk a little bit why that's changed and why it's not as it was almost 30 years ago when I first came. That was a busy department. It's different now. So my recommendation is that we not replace the abstractor position, but instead take that position or the funding that's available for it and reallocate it to two different departments, but 3 different spots. And one would be a part-time deputy register of deeds to do the posting of legal descriptions and verify indexing, and that is the abstract portion that still exists that we need to do. And then take the other half of it and plus a half-time and create, right now we have in our mapping department an IT, a half-time IT and half-time mapping, what's called GIS technician. What we would do is take and make the GIS technician a full-time position, and then take the IT position, move it back into IT, and make it a full-time position with office manager duties. So again, a lot going on, and I'll stop for a minute and maybe let Dave talk a little bit about the changes that would occur and why in his department, and then Barb with regard to the changes and how it impacts her department.
So in terms of, is that good? So in terms of mapping, we have, most of you may know Matt. He was hired as an IT technician. I think 2 years ago, our full-time mapper, who had been here for 20 years, left to take a job with the state of Michigan. So we were scrambling a little bit, and boy, I honestly I don't remember all the steps that led up to it, but anyway, opted to offer Matt the opportunity to work half-time in mapping, send him to some classes, and with the idea that he could at least half-time mapping, half-time IT, perform maintenance on the databases and the maps, and that if there was any custom type work or projects that I would handle those. And so that was the plan moving forward. The reality is that in most cases, IT always takes precedent over mapping, and it's just not adequate to his time not being dedicated is not allowing us to really keep up those maps that we've taken 30 years to build, those databases, as well as we would like, or to take advantage of them as much as we would like. So a dedicated person who's schooled and trained in that profession of I always say mapping because I'm old school, but geographic information systems is the name of the science. And so anyway, essentially getting back what we lost a couple of years ago, a very dedicated, long-time employee. I don't think we could ever replace that employee, but somebody who is passionate and can take this by the reins and pick up this program where we left off. So that's a little bit history behind the mapping portion. And then from an IT standpoint, getting that half-time person, making Matt's job back to full IT, using his skills, he he's a fair mapper, but he's not passionate. He would much appreciate becoming the office manager and doing some of the tasks that he's doing now full-time. He's in charge of what we call asset management. That's a big one. And also he manages the help desk software and kind of keeps us all on track with tickets that we have and jobs that we're doing in our meetings. So Matt is also in charge of the website. And so with this additional time that he will have, right now we're working on redoing the entire website. And that's a project that I've given him as well. So his plate is pretty full without worrying about mapping splits. And also, an area that has picked up has been walk-in traffic for mapping questions, public service. And we're not set up for that right now, and we certainly do it. And part of this change would be to kind of enhance that experience when people come in and they have questions about their legal description and need maybe some clarification, that sort of thing. So in this case, there would be a dedicated person, the mapping person, that would be the first line to help people that come in, and it's becoming a daily occurrence. So those are some of the benefits that I see moving forward with this plan.
Any questions from commissioners?
Just would make a quick comment. One, before maybe Barb talks for a second about then the register side. One of the concerns as I look at our programs and staffing is as we look into the future, Dave is not to put a timeline on him or anything, but Dave is going to retire at some point.
No, he's not.
Well, the reality is, unfortunately, we both have more runway behind us than we do in front of us, and I've got to look at that. I don't want to all of a sudden Dave retire, and the reason I pointed out is Dave was the original mapping GIS individual. He was hired to start the program, and he has followed it through and has the institutional memory. Rose Anger was our expert. Dave is, but Rose was, and then she took another job, so we lost that. We now have a half-time position dedicated to mapping. When Dave retires, that's all we will have as far as this program goes. And it's sort of a program that we don't hear at the forefront now. If you deal with 911, they're dealing regularly with 911 to keep up the CAD system, the access points for CAD system for 911. I know there's a lot of touch points out there. Again, I just don't want all of a sudden Dave to retire and the board to not be aware that that program has diminished to what I would consider as little as it is and short institutional memory. So we've got to figure out a way, and we struggled to find folks that have experience in abstracting. You just don't get that. We can, with mapping, we can certainly find somebody with mapping experience. They're coming out of college with that experience and whatnot. But it is going to be a challenge with a half-time position to fill that with any type of, one, qualified individual, or two, somebody that's interested and willing to stay for any length of period. So as we look to why we bring that back to full time, it's looking toward the future and acknowledging that when Dave leaves, there's nobody else to pick up. There's no second person to help with mapping and make sure that we can continue that going. So that's part of. And then on the IT, of course, anything that gets connected with IT is going to some degree take a second seat because IT is always priority. It just, it continues to require more and more resources and more staff, and it's always a priority. So, of course, mapping whatever is attached to IT gets set to the side for a crisis and a fire, and it seems like daily there's something that pops up that's either a crisis or fire, or they're doing it so they can avoid one. So that's a little bit of inside of our heads why we're coming to where we're coming to. And then if you want Barb to talk a little bit about the Register of Deeds and that portion of the abstract position, again, so we make sure that we continue the track index. Some of that fiddler technology is going to enhance and take on, but we still have some requirements there.
My turn?
Sure.
I think there's still a strong need for an abstractor in the community, and people want it. It was a very good service for us to have, because if somebody come in and the register deeds only searches or should only be searching by grantor grantee, but with the capability of putting the legal descriptions into the computer system and just pulling a document by the parcel number of the legal description, it's been very easy for my staff to just stick that in there and within minutes have their deed. But what comes complicated is when somebody comes in and they don't know what name that deed's in, it has to be searched by the legal description, because it could be a lady who's changed her name or a trust that isn't, nobody knows what it is. So it was very important, and people like that abstractor. But again, we've had a part-time abstractor as long as I've been registered, and this is my third term. We used to have 1.5 in the abstract office, and there was always somebody who could do that searching that was full-time, which was good. But when it became part-time, it was hard for the person who filled that position to index and keep up with our work and still do all the searching that needed to be done. In fact, this last year, we've done over 14,000 documents, which is an all-time high, which is about 75,000 pages that we have to review. And 67% of that actually comes in electronically, but we don't have the track index kept up at this point, which is a problem, because the abstractor didn't retire. She chose to leave because she didn't agree with something that I learned at a MARD conference that the county attorney says we must stop doing. And I went to Michael and I said, I think we need to get an opinion. I presented it to her, and she didn't like the idea, so she left. And it did leave a big gap there, and people were very unhappy about it. My office picked up as much as they could by still searching and finding deeds, by putting in the parcel number stuff, but we had to stop indexing that because we couldn't keep up with the work. So the question is, what is the best thing to do? Fill that position, the part-time position, just get those things caught up and indexed, which is very important, or have a full-time that still does that searching. Now, if you have somebody that still does that searching, there's always that liability. They're going to miss something, and it comes back onto the county. So we need the one where we're indexing, but do we need the one that's searching? It's convenient, it's nice, but we have quite a few title companies here in town that can do that. And just like with Fiddler, and I appreciate you guys allowing us to go to Fiddler, they have that capability. We can get that track index online once it gets approved. And these title companies that would come in, or title examiners that travel halfway across the state to do title examining, can do that right from their home. And they're excited about that. They really are. And I think there is a lot of genealogy that will be done on that track index if it's in the system. But as far as the abstract position, do we need it? Probably not. We do need the indexing part. That is state statute. We must index it. As far as the wages that was set, I personally feel that's a little high, because that person will no longer be doing track index or building a track index or building an abstract. And I think it does offend my staff when they see somebody that's going to come in that we have to train to do the indexing, to proof the indexing, and they're not making that kind of wages. I think it offends my staff, and I think that's an issue that should be addressed. I also feel that the mapping part, that's an extremely high wages to pay anybody that maps. If you Google it, you can come up with Michigan, the GIS people, the average salary is about $51,000 to $68,000. So I do think that is a little bit extreme. But do we need that track index kept up? Yes. And do we need it online? Yes, I think so. That's the way it's coming.
Are there further questions?
Just was clarifying, Barb, that wages based on benefits too, so it's the same classification. We'll have to go through the classification
That makes
process
sense.
and finalize
That
it.
makes sense.
But it's
Yep.
classified as a deputy register of deeds.
That makes totally
So
makes sense.
not your
Okay.
not your first deputy, your chief. But
Thank you for
Okay,
clarifying
that-
that.
a deputy. So
That's
yeah.
Is there questions from commissioners?
Just answered mine. Thank you.
All right. Hearing no questions, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the following changes resulting in a net position increase of 0.5 FTE, eliminating the county abstractor position at 1 FTE, eliminating the IT help desk GIS technician position at 1 FTE, adding a GIS technician position at 1 FTE, adding an IT help desk office manager position at 1 FTE, and adding a 0.5 FTE deputy register of deeds position to post legal descriptions and verify indexing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Could you bring an estimate of what you think that part-time person, not this one, but the one you just talked about earlier,
To clean up the
images?
I-
Bring us an estimate of what you think that might run?
I have no idea until they get in and look at these books. But like I said, I feel that it can be done in 2 months at 19 hours. I honestly would be surprised if it takes that. But we don't know until we get in and looking at those books. I did put all that information into the system, and I do know that there's going to be pages that need cleaned up, meaning they're going to have to take those books apart, scan them in, and drop them into the computer system, which is going to take some time. But I really have no way of knowing until we actually go and look into it.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to take these two motions together.
Okay. These are, real quickly, these are just following on the contract negotiations. We've done previous resolutions, and we'll have some additional as we add more groups to the retirees. So,
Okay. So the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached revised MERS Healthcare Savings Program Participation Agreement for Berry County to include Berry County courthouse employees, BCCEA, who do not opt out, elected officials, including judges and general fund department heads and general fund non-represented employees, and to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached MERS Healthcare Savings Program Participation Agreement for eligible Berry County Courthouse Employees Association members who opt out of the MERS Healthcare Savings Program replacement benefit and continue with the retiree health insurance benefit as provided in Article 17, Section 3 of the Collective Bargaining Agreement effective 1/1/2015 through 12/31/20.
So moved.
That motion is made by Smelker, supported by Gibson. Discussion? So this is just continuing on what we discussed previously. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. I'm not going to bring the next issue to the floor because I just want to have a general discussion. So we still do not have a appointee to the Commission on Aging Board, and because of individual schedules, I'd like to propose having a rotating appointment, at least so we can have somebody there. Somebody fill in for a month or two, and then someone else. Would benefit of this is, one, it gets a commissioner on that board, and the second benefit is people get to see what's going on in COA up close.
I'll volunteer to go today.
Okay. Is that acceptable?
When do they meet?
They meet monthly. Is that right, Sharon?
Tuesday, the third Tuesday at 2. Is that still the third Tuesday at 2 p.m.?
Is it still 3 o'clock?
It's 2 o'clock.
2? Okay.
Correct? 2 o'clock.
So, okay. Who wants to go in May?
I can do it, Ben.
Okay.
Sure.
So, good. That gives us a couple of months, and we'll see how that goes. So the chair would entertain a motion to... Michael, can I just appoint who to the COA board, or does that have to be ratified by the commission?
You appointed all of us to boards, didn't you?
Yeah, but you voted to ratify it. Well,
I got the board rules. Rules and procedures. You want 'em?
no, I think if I can appoint, I'll just appoint it, but we'll just cover our bases. And the chair to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners appointment of Howard Gibson to serve on the Commission on Aging Board for the month of, actually, their next meeting's in May, isn't it?
April. Today.
He's going today, so it'd be April.
For April, and Bruce Campbell for the month of May.
You said that you Bruce.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you to you two. Appreciate everyone's flexibility. Limited public comment. This time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes. Hearing no such request and without objection, the committee will now adjourn.